I hope you understood the four parameters like temperature, pressure, wind, and the density. These are the four components which affects the atmosphere. And though as a human we do not have a control on weather, but we can still study the weather and try to understand and try to be ready in case of any uh, challenges we encountered during our flying operations. Right
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
now, let's see quickly on the drone maintenance part. So this plays a very important role. How do we see from a perspective the drone is being regularly maintained, and how often you should do the maintenance part of the drone. So, okay. Drone equipment and maintenance. So drone equipment and maintenance. So drone has a lot of components, as we have seen during the fixed wing rotorcraft hybrid operations and aerodynamic sessions. you know. So let's see what are the requirement with respect to the drone maintenance, and uh, how do you do servicing of the drone on a regular time. So regular usage may result in wear and tear of UAV, thus requiring regular maintenance. Why do we do maintenance? Because as we are utilizing the drone, regularly flying up and down, left, right, all that motions in different conditions, there would be a wear and tear on the unmanned aircraft system or your drone, and you should regularly do the maintenance. So comprehensive maintenance has to be performed after every 200 flights or takeoffs. So this is based on the what is being specified by the OEM. Okay, some drones it might talk about 100 flights, or it could be tell about 25 flight hours, or maybe 100 flight hours, depending upon type to drone. It depends upon what is being specified into your OEM manuals. Okay, so you should always refer to your OEM manual and follow that what is being specified as per the OEM manual to do the comprehensive maintenance. And not only after 200 flights or 50 flights or regularly checks on your drone two times. One is pre-flight, other is post-flight checks per flight. Every time you try to fly your drone, there is something what we call it like every time you land your drone, always the duty of a pilot. Every time you are flying the drone, your job is to make sure you physically check. Visually you should check your drone things properly. Like for example, you should check the landing gear is proper, battery connectors have been connected properly, the motors and everything is proper. You can, by hand you can turn the propellers and see whether they are moving smoothly, or if there is a noise or anything coming like that. You should keep these checks. So maintenance checklists and manuals with the standard operating procedures. You should always refer to your maintenance checklist and manuals with the standard operating procedures, how you should do the maintenance. And again, the maintenance, lot of time, not necessarily the pilot himself has to do, but he can initiate the maintenance cycle. He can call the authorized technician. Along with him, you can do the maintenance of the drone. Okay, whenever we are doing comprehensive maintenance of your drone, sometimes we may have to change the propeller, change the motor, or change any component except the flight controller and RC. Other components which are tend to have a wear tear and all the things, we are supposed to change those as that required. Especially the motors, propellers. These are the components which has lot of mechanical stress on them. They are tend to have a wear tear and all. Even the landing gear sometimes, because every time it is landing, there is a bump or there is a stress on the structure of the landing gear, which will also further pass on the stress on the body of the drone also. So sometimes the arms of the drones also get bent over the period of time, or they tend to, some kind of some drones you might see after 200 landings or something, you might see some crack or some change or some deformity or some damage you will encounter. So every time you do pre flight check or post flight check, you should check for all these damages and all that. Okay. So structural inspection, clean the airframe of a mud or a dirt. If there is any mud or dirt on the airframe, you should always clean it up. Inspect the airframe for the cracks. Check for any loose screws. Check propellers for damage. Check propellers for free spinning. That means you just give a tap the propeller and see whether they are moving smoothly. Check the motor for debris or obstruction. Just see visually when if there is some debris or obstruction in the motor will also not flow smoothly. Okay? So you should always see that. Check in case your drone is open. So check the wiring and the solder joints. Check the gimbal, camera lens is clean. Check the landing gear condition. Check the antenna position properly or not. Check the control station up for the faulty components. So control station also you should check. I mean the ground control station. So these are all structural. Like one of the place I have seen, one person had accidentally uh, dropped down the RC control and it got damaged the antenna, because antenna was vertically straight. It fall down on the antenna itself. There was a breakage where the antenna was connecting to the RC. So initially we didn't thought that we had a problem. Okay, but over when we were flying, we saw that we were losing the communication, or whenever we are trying to give throttle or pitch forward, it was not functioning. It was sometimes, I mean, it was not smooth. Okay, all of a sudden your drone stops, then it moves forward, then stops, moves forward, something like that. So it was not passing the signal. The antenna was not able to send the signal properly because it was damaged. It was not connected properly. So when I saw that, immediately we actually brought the drone landing and we ordered the new antenna for it. And then we replaced that faulty antenna with the new antenna. And after that, we saw that okay, the remote control was working perfectly fine. So it was a problem with the faulty component in the RC. So in case of any damage or anything, you should always take a corrective actions immediately. So drone maintenance checklist, you can check with the battery, battery check, inspect the charger for visible damage, inspect the battery pack for bulge or leakage, and charge all the batteries. If you have a three sets of battery, you should charge them in a cycle. Okay, you can't just leave uh, one at a time and then I'll charge the next one. So you should always number your battery. You should know which battery is being charged, which battery is being used at what time. Lot of time I have seen people who are having a DJI drone. Sometimes DJI drone you purchase, or nowadays the DJI drone comes with three set of batteries. Okay, so people don't keep a track. Okay, sometimes they are using the same set of battery only. Okay, they don't know which battery was used when and what. So you should normally number them one, two, three, and you should follow that cycle. If I charge the first battery, then you charge the second battery, then you charge the third battery. When you are using it in a drone, also you charge to put it in the same sequence. First battery you have charged, use that first battery. Then you do second battery, then third battery. So that's how you know the cycling of your battery usage also. Similarly, when the first is discharged, you go for first discharging. Moment your second battery get discharged, put that second battery, then third battery. Again, to follow that cycle. If I said it randomly, you put took one, then you put three, then you put two, then again you put two. Some mismatch and all that. You should not. You should form a systematic procedure when you are actually charging the battery, utilizing the battery, and try to keep a record. Okay, so that's why in the maintenance part also battery charging cycle or the record has to be maintained by the pilot. I will show you the log, how to maintain or how we should keep a record of a battery when we are charging for drone flight. Okay. Again, software firmware again depends upon the drone to drone and what does the OEM says or what does the certification say. Based on that, you should always see that whether you are required to update the drone firmware or update the control station software as and required. And whatever these maintenance you are doing, make sure you keep a maintenance report for it. So keep a track of a maintenance report, and you should always file this report in your file, okay? Or wherever you are keeping all your maintenance data points, so that there is an inspection or any issue in future, you can always showcase that when you have done the last maintenance or what was done during the maintenance part. So in case of there is any lapse or any something not done properly, and thing will come to know from this data. Okay. Okay, so you keep a track of a maintenance report. Now, when we are doing a structural inspection, okay, clean airframe of mud or dirt. So over the time, drone will gather layer of dirt from the river of flight, transport, and storage. Okay, just a minute, I am getting a phone.
Hello, hello. Uh-huh. Which lady you spoke? Priyadarshini. I don't know who is calling. You don't need to. You don't need to talk to resort and anybody. I have given you the details how to do the payment, right? अभी मेरा दो स्टूडेंट्स ने पेमेंट किया. They just did the payment and it is just a 6,000 rupees for 3 days 2 nights, not 6,000 per night. See that is actually, see that rate what you are getting is the standard rate. If you're doing a normal booking, you will get this value 6,000 per night. Here we are giving a subsidized rate only to our students. हाँ आपको सिर्फ 6,000 पे करना है. That's it. That is a subsidized rate for the Bombay flying students only. Since you are a student, you are getting this discounted rate. Normal resort का rate is 6,000 rupees per night per person. Okay. So अगर आप देखोगे दो नाइट का तो 6,000 plus 6,000 it will be 12,000 plus a day. Okay, so it will go more than that. So day ka I think it is half price. So 3,000. So 15,000 you have to pay. Here your 3 days 2 nights for a student it is, we have given that discounted rate. हाँ just pay whatever I have given you the details over there, bank details and all. You can do that payment. ठीक है. ये नीचे का नंबर शायद जीपे नंबर है ना मेरे ख्याल से. नीचे नंबर दिया है ना. दैट इज द जीपे नंबर. ओके. ओके चलो बाय. ओके.
Okay, sorry, call from a student.
So battery
So
pack has
battery
to be
pack has to be
disconnected
disconnected and drone needs to be powered on using air duster in combination with microfiber cloth. Remove the most of the dirt and buildup on the drone. Care has to be taken when dealing with the sensitive electronic components. Tools required for cleaning light, it could be anti-static cloth, small cleaning brush, compressed air canisters, or anti-static wristband when you are dealing with the electronic components into it. And then the isopropyl alcohol. This is very useful isopropyl alcohol if you find dust within the motor. So you have to put the isopropyl alcohol in a bowl and then you have to dip that motor for 24 hours so that your dirt or the mud whatever would have accumulated within the motor will get loosened up and then you can use the anti what is not air canister to remove the dry mud or the dust what is accumulated in the motor. Okay, if it is beyond your this basic maintenance, if required, sometimes the mud is very sticky or got inside the motor or the bearings and all. You may have to open the motor also. But in that scenario, if you are aware of doing things, then only you should do it, or you should call a service person or technician to do it. Okay. So for inspecting the airframe for the cracks, okay, carefully inspect the airframe for damage. You should perform these checks on a regular basis and ensure all parts are serviced accordingly. Even the smallest crack can cause critical problem if left unnoticed. So a lot of time people say, "Arey yaar, chota sa crack hai. Let's forget about it. Kuch nahi." If there is a smallest crack, because in flight when it is under the stress, okay, lot of time even in the bigger airplanes, they have ignored a small cracks on the wing or on the structure of their body has caused disaster. You should never uh, what do you say, ignore. Okay, a lot of people have tendency to अरे छोटा सा crack है इतना बड़ा aeroplane है क्या होगा, something like that. But that crack over the period of time, the moment you notice, you should bring it to the people's notice that this is what I observed. Please take care of this, so that your job is finished over there, or you should make sure that you follow that there is something action has been done. If you just ignore it to yourself, you are actually at a fault. And later on, over the period of time, people will see that okay, this crack has not all of a sudden occurred. They would know when it would happen. It may be noticed by somebody else also, or maybe some people are started taking pictures. Like right now, even in the monitoring of the aeroplanes, drones are being used. So a lot of big aircrafts, when they are supposed to do the maintenance part, the drones are used to capture the entire structure outside, whatever position they are able to do it. Drones are being used to capture the footages of the aircraft. Okay, so now when we have a visual evidence available with you, you should never ignore these small cracks or small problems, which may sounds very easy or small at a stage, but they could create a big problem. Okay. So during routine maintenance, check each component carefully, extremely carefully, and make note of damage you find. So check each component extremely carefully. I mean, see propeller, see the frame, see the arms, see the landing gear. See whether the battery, where you are connecting, where you are putting the battery, whether that is having proper things or not, whether it is connected properly or not. All that things you should inspect properly and report in case you find anything issue. So as a pilot, your job is to make sure that you are flying a good condition, healthy aeroplane or healthy drones. Okay. If you find any problems or anything, you should always bring a notice to your maintenance engineer or your higher officials, whichever it is. Okay. Ensure every component is secured tightly in place. During the maintenance or repair, it is likely that some components will need to be removed and replaced. So let's say if you are removing the motor, you want to change the motor, you want to change the propeller. So a lot of time these screws needs to be loosened up and removed the propeller, put a new propeller back and forth and all that thing. So make sure that you are tightening things properly. Double check the fastening bolts. If there is a safety key or safety point plug is there, put that safety pin also there if required, as it is there. Okay. However, during this kind of activity, don't try to over tight them. Okay, this could lead to excessive strain on joints or do even more damage. Okay, just excuse me.
Hello? Regarding? कहाँ पे? नहीं नहीं, नॉट इंटरेस्टेड, नॉट इंटरेस्टेड। नहीं, अभी फिलहाल कोई प्रॉपर्टी का रिक्वायरमेंट नहीं है। थैंक यू।
Okay.
So don't
So
over
don't over
tighten. This could
tighten.
lead
This
to
could lead to
stress on
excessive
joint,
strain
or
on
even
joint,
can
or even
cause
can
crack,
cause crack,
or
or
fastener
the
can get
fastener
slip
can get slip
from the threads,
from the threads,
or it could
or it
become
could become
loose
loose
also,
also
or it
sometimes,
could
or it
damage
could damage
the threads and
the
all that
threads
thing.
and all that thing. So
Tight
tight
as much
as
as
much
required
as
only.
required
Don't try
only.
to put
Don't try
too
to
much
put too much
of excessive
of
strength
excessive strength
on the joint,
on the
or trying
joint,
to
or
tight
trying
too
to
much
tight
of
too
your
much of
nut
your
bolt and
nut
all that
bolt
thing.
and all the things. So
You should be
you should be sub,
very
very
judgmental in this
judgmental
or
in this, or
subjective. How
subjective,
much
how
pressure
much
to apply?
pressure to
Don't
apply.
try to
Don't try to
tight
tight
too
too
much
much
of
of
it.
it.
Okay,
Okay, one of the drones
in my
in
past
my past
organization, I've
organization,
seen
I have seen,
people
people
when they were
when they were actually
changing the
changing the
motors or
motors or
propellers,
propellers,
they tried
they
to tight
tried
it
to
too
tight
much.
it too much.
Okay,
Okay,
at that point
and
in
that
time,
point
we
in
have
time, we
seen
have
a lot
seen
of
that
time
lot of time
the
the
threading used to
threading
get
used to
damaged.
get damaged.
Okay,
Okay,
over the period
over
of
the
time.
period of time, because
The more
the
time
more
you
tight
do it
you do it on the
surface,
surface,
it will
it
have a
will
lot of
have a lot of
strain. Okay,
strain. It will
generate that
generate
strain,
that strain,
and over the
and
period
over
of
the
time,
period of time,
every
every
time
time
you
you
are
are checking,
checking,
you are trying to
every
tight.
time you are
Every
checking,
time you are
it
trying to
will tight.
tight, you will tight.
So every
So
time you are
every
putting
time you are
more
putting
strain and
more
more
strain
strain,
and more strain.
एक टाइम पे क्या
एक
होगा,
time पे क्या होता है,
that
फिर वो
screw
that
will
screw will
slip.
slip.
Okay, because that
Okay,
thread
because
will
that
get
thread will get
worn out
worn out
because of
because
excessive
of
strain you're
excessive
putting
strain
on that.
every time you're doing it.
Okay, when you are
When
checking
you're
for
checking for
propellers, check
propellers, check
propellers for
propellers
dirty,
for
chip
dirty,
or
chip,
crack.
or crack.
Okay, so
Okay,
propeller
so
damage
propeller
can go
damage can
unnoticed
go
until it
unnoticed until
proves
it
critical.
proves critical.
Inspection for
Inspection
cracks,
for cracks,
proper fitting of
proper
props
fitting
to
of
the
props
motor.
to
A
the
lot of
motors.
time
Lot
people
of time people
misalign the
misalign
propellers,
the
like as we
propellers, like
talked
as we
yesterday.
talked yesterday.
Propellers are being
Propellers are
marked with
being marked with
CW or
CW or
CCW.
CCW.
CW is
CW is
clockwise,
clockwise,
CCW is
CCW is
counterclockwise.
counterclockwise.
So if your
So if
motor
your
is
motor is
clockwise, you should
clockwise,
always
you should
fit a
always fit
clockwise
a
propeller
clockwise
on it.
propeller
If your
on it.
motor
If
is
your motor is
counterclockwise,
counterclockwise, you should always fit a
counterclockwise
counterclockwise
on the
the
motor.
motor.
Okay,
So
when you have a
when you have a
quadcopter, okay,
quadcopter,
you should
okay, you
know
should know
which side
which
motor
side
is
motor
your
is your
clockwise, which side
clockwise, which
is your
side is your
counterclockwise,
counterclockwise,
and
and
all that.
all that.
Here
So
you need
here
to
you need,
see
when
the
you
drone.
seeing the drone,
I have not
I
talked
have
about
not
this
talked
topic
about this
because I
topic
want to
because I
show
want
you
to show you
physically. That's why
physically. That's
when we
why
are
when
actually
we are
inspecting
actually
the drone,
inspecting a drone,
physically
physically
I
I
will
will
talk
talk
about
to you
which is
about
your
which is your
counterclockwise.
counterclockwise.
Just by
Just
looking
by
at the
looking
drone,
at the drone,
you should know.
you should know,
Okay,
okay,
which is your
which is
clockwise,
your clockwise motor,
which is the
which
propeller is
propeller is
rightly aligned
rightly
with
aligned
the motor
with the
or
motor
not.
or
So
not.
how you
So
should
how you
inspect
should
this as
inspect
a
this as
pilot.
a pilot.
Okay,
Okay,
so double
so
check the
double
type
check
of
the type
prop
of
well
prop well
replacing. A lot of
replacing.
people
Lot of
time
people
make
time
mistakes.
make
They
mistakes.
don't see
They
a
don't
drone
see a
come
drone का
propeller निकाला,
propeller निकाला,
दूसरा propeller
दूसरा
लगा
propeller
दिया.
लगा दिया.
But they don't see
But they
whether I
don't
am
see whether I
connecting
am
the
connecting
similar
the
type of
similar type
propeller
of
or not.
propeller or not, because
Propeller looks
propeller
similar
looks
when it is in
similar
your
when it
hand
is in your
until
hand, unless you
notice it
notice it
properly
properly
with
with
respect to the
respect to
Bernoulli
the
principle.
Bernoulli principle.
Okay, so you
Okay,
should
so you
know
should know
the leading
the
edge.
leading edge and
This
trailing
is
edge.
where
This is
your
where
knowledge
your
of
knowledge
Bernoulli
of
principles
Bernoulli
will come
principles
into the
will come
picture.
into the picture.
Okay, so when you
Okay,
are
so when you
seeing
are
the
seeing
propeller,
the
if you are
propeller, if you
changing
are
clockwise
changing
propeller,
clockwise propeller,
you should
you
always
should
replace
always
with the
replace with
clockwise
the
propeller.
clockwise
If you're
propeller.
changing
If you're changing
counterclockwise,
counterclockwise,
change it with the
change it with the
counterclockwise.
counterclockwise.
Sometimes you are not
Sometimes you are
changing the
not
propeller,
changing
but
the
you are
propeller,
changing
but
the
you are
motor.
changing the motor.
Okay, so a lot of
Okay, so a
people
lot of
time
people
make
time
mistake
make
also.
mistake also.
Propeller
Propeller
clockwise है लेकिन
clockwise है,
motor
लेकिन
counter
motor
clockwise
counter
लगा दिया.
clockwise लगा दिया.
तो क्या होगा?
तो क्या होगा?
You move the
Put the
propeller in a
propeller
wrong
in the
direction
wrong
or in
direction
opposite
or in
direction.
opposite direction.
Okay, then again
Then
after you
again,
doing
after you
all
doing
these
all
changes,
these changes,
last point,
last point,
actual flying
actual
the drone, you
flying the
need to
drone, you should
manually check
manually
whether
check
the
whether
motor,
the
the
motor,
propeller
the
is
propeller is
spinning
spinning
properly or not,
properly or not.
okay, smoothly. So this is a
This is a
mandatory check
mandatory
you
check.
should do. Okay,
It
again
again depends
depends
upon
upon
drone
drone
to
to drone.
drone.
If
If
you
you
have a
have
drone
a
which is
drone which is
open end drone,
open end drone,
you
you
should
should
always check
always
for
check
wiring
for
or
wiring
any wear
or
out.
any wear out.
Open the
Open
chassis,
the
inspect the
chassis,
internal
inspect the
wiring,
external wiring,
solder any
solder
loose
any
joint.
loose
So a lot
joints.
of
A
time,
lot of time,
over the period
over
of
the period of
operation
operation
and flying,
time
or because
or
of
because
your drone,
of the
is impacted to the weather conditions and other things. So these
So
soldering joints
soldering joints
sometimes they
sometimes they
become dry
become dry
and they
and
broke.
they broke.
Okay, so a lot of
Takes
times
a
this
lot of time
happens.
to
So if you
happen.
find any
Right?
kind of
Any kind
issue,
of
you should always
with
check
check
and
and
resolder them
resolder them
anytime where you
anytime
find
available.
a loose connection. Okay. Before doing
Before
any
doing
kind of
any
such
kind
kind
of
of
such kind
activity,
of
make sure
activity,
that
make
you
sure that
refer
you
to your
refer to your
manuals. If you are not
if you're
aware of
not
these
aware
things,
of it,
I
I
request not to
request
do
not
all
to
these
do
things.
all these
You
things. You
should
should
always
always refer
to your
to
OEM
your
for
OEM
sending
for
a
sending a
technician to do all
technician to
these
do
kind of
all this
works.
kind of repair works.
Okay.
Okay, as I told you about the motor also, like lot of times the dust or the debris get accumulated within the motor because motor is an open structure. Okay, remove the proper prop adapters to get a proper motor. Use air duster. I mean, these small things you can do it, but in case you need to open a motor like this, okay, then you should refer the maintenance manual, and if you are aware of how to do it, because you are removing the arm, okay, and the armature separately. So they need to be put back properly and aligned properly. If you are not able to do it properly, you should not do it because some motors required a hydraulic press to put this rod inside the bearing and all. Okay, so a lot of time people make damage to the bearing or the stuff on the motor. So in that scenario, you should avoid doing it because people को लगता है कि ये this arm you can just put it into this hole of the bearing and you can hammer it and it will go down. So no, while hammering your hammering is not a uniform way. Okay, so normally these things are done using a small hydraulic press, okay, which applies the pressure uniformly and not do aware of how small like in the air conditioner and blowing away the dust or debris. These things you can do, okay, because these are harmless. Okay, but in case you have to open the motor and do this kind of activity, if you are not trained for that thing or you do not know how to do it, you should always refer to your technician or service guy to come and do it for you. Okay, inspection also a lot of time. There is lot of people don't do these small checks before the flight. और जब वो flight करता है, data collect करता है to capture the images, and then you see your images are not clear, or there is a dirt on because there was a dirt on the lens of the camera. Your images are not good on clear and all that. You should always before takeoff remove the cover. Like lot of time I have seen there is a cover, okay, on the lens also. A lot of people forget to remove that cover also, okay, before the flight. So you should make sure that you remove the cover, clean the lens or the front lens. There is a safety lens also in front of the real lens. Okay, so or the protective lens, what we call. So even that requires cleaning because a lot of then rust is getting accumulated on it. Okay, so clean that so that you get a crystal clear, good pictures or good videos when you are actually performing your action with the drone and the camera. Check the landing gear condition. Without this module, drone would not able to perform the landing gear. So this is the important part of the drone. Okay, make sure the leg and the feet of the unit are not bent or cracked. So if you find any bent or a crack, you should replace with the good one or the right one. Okay, all the rubber or the spring shock absorbers are intact. Like lot of time you have a rubbers. These are the rubbers. So over the period of time, sometimes these rubbers also get worn and torn out. Okay, so kabhi like one of the rubber would get torn on, and then you are left with only three rubbers. In that scenario, you should replace it with the new. Okay, or in case you have seen over the period of time, like almost 200 landings you have done. In that scenario, you should replace all the four rubber bands. It is not because after 200 landings, even your or remaining three, though they are not torn or broken, they may have got worn out. Okay, so they might have become thin, or they might have got chipped and all that kind of thing. So don't change only one rubber matting. Okay, try to change all the four rubber at the same time. Okay, or if you have a shock up observer, make sure that spring is moving properly. Or if you have a hydraulic uh, landing gear also, like there are some heavy drones which are having hydraulic landing gears also. So it will make a smooth landing of the drone. Okay, you do not encounter any bumpiness or the shock which get into the landing gear is not transferred to the frame of the drone. So somewhere you have only spring loaded or hydraulic loaded landing gears also. In case of any part damaged or missing, they will need to be ordered from your manufacturer and made. So don't try to work around that, thinking that landing gear so kya just a metal pipe hai and all that thing. So you try to replace with something else. Don't do that things. Okay, so this is very crucial or critical part of the drone. So in case you find landing gear is damaged or faulty or thing,
replace with
replace
the
with the
parts
parts
from
from
the
the
OEM.
OEMs.
Okay.
Okay.
Again, structural
Again, structural
inspection. Make sure
inspection.
that
Make
you
sure that you inspect. I gave you example of the antenna. This was the part of the antenna which was broken.
Okay.
Okay,
So
so
we
we
immediately
immediately
ordered and
ordered and
replaced.
replaced.
So remote
So
control
remote
chassis,
control chassis, remote control antenna, extended rate transmitter, receiver, typical
ground control
ground
station.
control
So
station.
in
So
case
in case
there is any
there is
damage
any
or any
damage or any
problem,
problem, lot of time,
somebody
somebody
drops
drops
this
this
case.
case.
They
They
do
do
not
not
know
know
what
what
is
is
inside.
inside.
So
So
if
if
you
you
tell
tell
somebody
somebody
else
else
to bring it,
to
he
bring
might
it,
think
he
this is
might
just a
think this is just a
suitcase.
suitcase.
Nothing will
Nothing
happen.
will
Though
happen.
they are
Though
built
they are built
in
in
a
a rugged
suitcase
suitcase
kind
kind
of
of
thing,
thing,
but
but
you
you
can't
can't
drop
drop
them.
them.
Okay.
Okay,
Because
because
there
there
could
could
be
be
electronic
electronic
components
components
inside which
inside
could
which could
cause
cause
any
any
kind
kind
of
of
damage
damage,
or
or
could
could
be
be
structural,
structural,
not
not structural, which is
visible
visible
from
from
outside,
outside,
but
but
there
there
could
could
be
be some,
some
because of
because
the
of the shock
shock
at
at
what
what
it
it
falls.
falls.
There could be
There could
some
be some
failure
failure
or
or
some
some
breakage
breakage
could
could
happen
happen
internally
internally
also,
also,
which
which
is
is
not
not
visible
visible
to
to
your
your
eyes.
eyes.
So
So
in
in
this
this
scenario,
scenario,
make
make
sure
sure
that
that
you
you
don't
don't
allow,
allow,
especially
especially
the
the
RCs and the
RCs
control
and the
station,
control station,
to
to
be
be
carried
carried
by
by
a
a
person
person
who
who
doesn't
doesn't
know
know
the
the
importance
importance
or
or
criticality
criticality
of
of
these
these
components.
components.
Okay.
Okay.
And even if
And
you're
even
telling
if
to
you're
do it
telling to do
somebody,
it somebody,
you should
you
keep
should
monitoring it.
monitoring it.
Don't tell
Don't tell
like,
like, okay, bhai, oh, like
tell in
normally we tell
office
in
to office
office
boy,
to office boy, baba, ye,
please take this
please
to
take this
X
to
location
X
or all.
location.
Like even in
Like even
resort,
in
we will
resort,
use
we will
people,
use people,
our resort
resort staff to
to
carry the drone
carry the
or
things
carry the things
from the store
from the store
to the flying
to the
location.
flying location.
But that
But
scenario
that
we should
scenario, we should
always
always
accompany them.
accompany them.
Okay, it
Okay?
should
It
not
should
happen.
not
This kind
happen.
of
This kind of
activity should
activity
never
should
happen
never happen
when you are
when
not
you
there.
are not there.
Okay,
Okay?
so
So
if
if
you
you
are
are
asking
asking
staff
a
to carry
staff to
the drone,
carry the
cat
drone,
staff to
cat
carry
staff
the
to carry the
batteries,
batteries,
or
or
even
even remote
remote
controller
controller
or
GCS
DCS
stations and all,
stations and all,
you should
you should
always done in
always
front
done
of
in
you,
front of you,
not
not
when you are not
when you
there.
are not there.
Clear
Clear
on this?
on this?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, battery
Okay, battery
inspection charger.
inspection
If
charger.
you are
So
having
if
a
you are
big
having a
charger
big
where you are
charger
able
where
to
you are
charge
able to
multiple
charge
batteries,
multiple batteries,
make sure the
make
docking
sure the
station
docking
charger
station
for each
charger for
battery
each
pack
battery
is
pack
being
is
checked
being checked
properly.
properly.
There is no
There is
damage
no
or it is
damage, or
giving
it
the
is
proper
giving the proper
indications and all.
indications and all
This
that thing. So this
component
component
can often
can
go for
often go
years
for
without
years
being
without
properly
being
serviced.
properly
Okay?
serviced. That means
You will not
you will not
encounter on a day
encounter
one
on a day
problems,
one
but
problems,
over the
but
period
over
of
the
time,
period
like
of
if you
time,
see
like if you see
battery
this
charger
battery
is being
charger
used
is
for
being used
years,
for
like one
years,
year,
like
2 year,
1 year, 2 year down the line,
then only you
then
will
only
see
you will
these
see
problems,
these
like it
problems,
may be
like
not
it may be
charging
not charging
properly,
properly,
or the
or the
connectors would have
connectors
got
would have
become
got become
oxidized and all.
oxidized and
So
all
you
that
should
thing. So
see
you
all
should
these
see
things.
all these things. So
Inspect chargers
inspect chargers
for visual
for visual
damages.
damages
It
or
could be the
any kind of a
could be
damage. It could be
environmental damages
environmental
also,
damages also,
as well as
as well
visual
as
checks should
visual checks
ensure
should
the
ensure
voltage
the voltage
specified, the dock
specified,
is
the dock is
compliant with that of
compliant
a
with that
battery
of a
pack.
battery pack.
So if there is
So
any
if there is
setting
any
when we
setting,
are
like
when we are
setting
setting
a
a charger
charger
for our
for
battery,
our
we will
battery,
set
we will
all these
set all
voltages
these
on our
voltages on
charger
our
and all.
charger and all. So
That point in
that
time, you
point in
should
time, you should
validate and check
validate and check
all
all
these
these
ratings,
ratings, what is been
what is
specified,
been
or
specified,
what
or what
voltage,
voltage,
what
what
ampere
ampere
it has to be
whether it
set,
has to
whether
be
it has
set
to be set
in a master
in a
mode,
master mode, or
or
whether
whether
it
it
has
has
to
to
be
be
set
slave
in a
mode,
slave mode,
whatever mode it
whatever
is,
mode or whatever
the
the
configuration
configuration
is
is
there
there
on
on
the
the
battery
battery
pack.
pack.
Based
Based
on
on
that,
that,
you
you
should
should
do
do
the
the
settings,
settings,
and
and
then
then
you should
you
put
should
it
put
your
put
batteries
your
for
batteries
charging.
for charging.
Okay,
Okay,
even the
in even the
batteries you should
batteries, you should
inspect
inspect
for bulges
for
or
bulges
leakages.
on
So if
leakages.
you
So
find
if you
any
find any
deformities
deformities
on the
on or the
leakages
leakage
on the
is on
batteries,
the
so you
batteries,
should
so you should
immediately discard
immediately
those
discard
batteries.
those
You should
batteries.
not
You should not
continue them
continue
in
them
your
in your
activities. Okay,
activities. Okay,
active packs
active
along with
packs
the
along with
spares
the
should be
spares
checked
should
and
be checked and
replaced.
replaced if necessary.
Inspect drone
Inspect
batteries,
drone batteries,
component
component
batteries,
batteries,
additional
additional
component.
component.
When
Like
we talk
when
about
we talk
component
about
batteries,
component
means
batteries,
even
means
your
even your
RC is having a
RC is
battery.
having a battery.
Even your
Even
ground
your
station
ground
might be
station
having a
might be
battery.
having a battery. and all. There are
There are
components,
components,
there are
there are
separate
separate
components.
components.
Wherever you are using
Wherever you are
batteries or
using
additional
batteries or
component
additional
batteries are
component
there,
batteries are
check
there,
for
check
their
for their
conditions. If you
conditions.
find
If
any
you find
damage or
any
they are not
damage or they are
performing
not
properly,
performing properly,
you should
you should
discard or
discard or
replace
replace
with a
with a
better
better
or
or
new
new
pack of
pack of
batteries
batteries
as
as
necessary.
necessary.
Okay,
Okay,
the
the
cell
cell
voltage
voltage
must
must
not
not
have a
have a
difference
difference
more
more
than
than
zero point 0.2
0.2
volts.
volts.
That
That
means
means
we are
we are
talking
talking
of
of
a
a
battery
battery
pack
pack
with
with,
let's
let's
say
say,
6
6
cells,
cells.
and
And
when
when
you
you
are
are
measuring
measuring
the
the
voltage,
voltage,
okay,
okay,
of
of
each
each
cell,
cell,
if
if
every
every
cell
cell
is
is
giving
giving
a
a
uniform
uniform
voltage,
voltage,
let's
let's
say
say
it
it
is
is
giving
giving
you
you
4.2 volt,
4.2 volt,
4.2 volt,
4.2 volt,
4.2 volts,
4.2 volts,
and
and
one
one
cell
cell
is
is
giving
giving
4.1.
4.1.
So
So
the
the
difference
difference
is
is
less
less
than
than
zero point 0.2
0.2
volt.
volt.
That
That
is
is
acceptable.
acceptable.
But if
But
one
if
cell
one
is
cell
giving
is giving
3.9 volt,
3.9 volt,
then there is the issue. Because out of all six cells, one cell is giving 3.9 volt, which is having a more difference in a cell voltage compared to other cells. So this is not an acceptable battery. So you should charge that battery properly and make sure that all six cells are identically giving you the voltage. If you're talking about 4.2, so it should be 4.2. Acceptable is less than zero point 0.2. So 4.2, 4.1 is acceptable. Okay, but if it is less than zero point 0.2, then you should always recharge that battery properly. Okay. Or could be that cell is may not be functioning, so that cell may have got faulty. So if you are finding that kind of challenge, you should not use that battery because that will impact the performance of the battery, which will indirectly affect your flight time of the battery, flight time of the drone. Okay, again, software firmware we talked about is update the drone firmware as required depending upon the drone which you are flying and whatever the guidelines been provided by the drone. In type certified drone, you don't require to update your drone firmware or change any software over here. Okay. Again, same thing goes for update construction. In case you are using a control station along with the drone, to make sure that you are using the latest stable version of your GCS controller. Okay. Uh, in our case, we are using the remote controller which is having itself the GCS on it. So you can LCD panel is already there on that control. So our remote controller itself is like a GCS for us. So everything is there on the remote controller. And since it has been certified under type certification, even the software on that you cannot change. So whatever the software is there, you should continue using that software until unless you are finding any problem and all this. In that scenario, you should always inform to the OEM to have a check, and that is the reason why my one of my drone on the GCS it is giving me some software related errors, okay? And that's the reason I have logged the case, and probably the engineer would be coming tomorrow on site to inspect and check what is to be done with that remote controller. Okay. Now, how to schedule the servicing, okay, or when to schedule the servicing for airframe, propeller, motor, gimbal, landing gear, camera. So all these components will definitely require some other time servicing. Okay. So servicing, how do you service it? So airframe is the major component of drone, and following component has to be removed before the servicing. So you have to remove the battery, you have to remove the propellers, detach the non-fixed components from the frame, remove all the screws from the frame. Let's say your landing gear or your frame has a structure damage, so you have to change the frame, right? So in that scenario, you have to completely dismantle your drone, bring a new frame, and put all the components into new frame. So when you are doing these things, you should do it properly in a very structured way. Until unless you are aware of doing things, then only you should do it, or you should get it done from the servician or the technicians. Okay. To reassemble with the new frame, you will always want to follow the subtask checklist in reverse. Be sure to refer to your manual for proper wiring guides and advice on how to route the cables inside the shell. Okay. So whenever you're doing this kind of activity, you should be trained for that activity. Then only you should do it. If you're not trained for that, don't do all these things activity. Until unless you are not worried of your drone getting damaged or having some problem, and then you'll end up to somebody else to do that activity for you. So try to avoid experimental activities or something like this when you are doing servicing to your drone, changing the airframe or anything like that. Small things you can do like changing the propeller, changing the motors. That's a small activity you can do, or replacing the batteries. All that things. Even the landing gear is a very small activity. So there's some smaller components you can change, which are very easy to do this. But if it is like talking about frame and all that things, you should always do it, get it done from the proper person who is actually trained for doing this kind of activity. Okay. Again, if you see you are changing the propeller orientation is important. Okay, so before removing the old propeller, you should see the directions. So looking at this propeller, can you tell me what type of propeller is this? Whether it is CW or CCW?
Mm,
How do you
How do you
identify
identify whether it is
CW or
CW or CCW?
are you aware of
Are
that?
you aware of that?
These are
It is the topic, basic principles of the flight.
how do you see
How do
the
you see
airfoil?
the airfoil?
When you see the
When you
airfoil,
see
what
the
first
airfoil,
thing do
what
you see
first
in
thing
the
you
airfoil?
see in the airfoil?
The
the
curvature,
edge.
the
Edge,
leading
the
edge,
leading edge and the trailing edge.
and
Yes,
if
sir.
you
Yeah.
see
If
here
you
in the
see here in
propeller,
the propeller,
this is
This
the
is the
leading edge.
leading.
this is the leading edge. Okay,
Whereas the
whereas the
sharpness
sharpness
or where
or where the
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 airfoil becomes
airfoil becomes thinner,
thin,
thin.
okay, the sharp
Okay, the
edge
sharp
where you
edge
see,
where you see,
that is your
that is your
trailing edge.
trailing edge.
So you see
So
here,
you
this
see
is
here, this
your
is
leading
your
edge or
leading
this
edge,
is
or
your
this
leading
is your
edge.
leading edge over here.
Okay,
Okay,
so your
so
propeller
your
will move
propeller will move
in the
in the
direction of
direction
the
of the
leading edge.
leading edge.
It
So
will move
it will
from
move
this
from
direction.
this
It will
direction.
move
So
like
it will
this.
move like this.
So this propeller
This
will move
propeller
like
will
this. So
move
what
like
is the
this. So what
movement?
is the moment?
CCW.
CCW,
Counterclockwise.
counterclockwise.
So are you
So
clear
are
now?
you clear now
How to
how to
identify the
identify the
propeller with
propeller
respect
with
to the
respect to the
curvature or the
curvature or
airfoil?
the airfoil?
Okay, that is
Yes.
why
That
we
is
learn
why we
Bernoulli
learn
principle.
Bernoulli
We
principle.
should know
We should know
the direction
the
of the
direction of
propeller
the
and
propeller
the
and
movement
the
it is
movement
going to
it is
happen
going
in
to
that.
happen in that.
अगर ये
अगर
उल्टा
ये
घूमेगा तो
उल्टा
क्या
घूमेगा
होगा?
तो क्या होगा?
Let's assume it
Let's
moves
assume
in
it
a
moves in a
clockwise direction.
clockwise direction.
What will happen?
What will happen?
It will not generate the lift.
Correct.
Correct.
It will not
It will not
generate the lift
generate the lift
properly.
properly.
It will become
It will become
unstable. The
unstable.
drone will
Your drone will
unstable. Lot
unstable.
of
So a
time
lot of
people when
time
they are
people when they
changing
are
the
changing
propeller,
the propeller,
CCW के जगह
CCW
पे
की जगह पे
CW लगा देते
CW
हैं,
लगा देते हैं
CW
या
की जगह पे
CW की जगह पे
CCW लगा
CCW
देते
लगा देते
हैं. And then
हैं. And
when
then
they take
when
the
they
flight,
take the flight,
that drone
that
become
drone become
unstable or
unstable
crashes.
or crashes.
Okay, it will
Okay, it
impact
will
the
impact
stability
the
of the drone,
stability of the drone,
and all of a sudden
and
you
all of a
find
sudden
that
you find why this is happening now.
you should be
You should
careful
be careful
when you are
when you are
changing the
changing
propellers
the
or
propellers
motors
or
also.
motors also.
These
These
mistakes
mistakes a
a lot
lot
of
of
people
people
have
have
been
been
doing.
doing it.
Okay, so
Okay, so
servicing of the
servicing
motor.
of the motor.
Now, if you see
Now,
this
if you see
motor,
this motor,
okay, this has
okay,
three
this has
cables.
three cables.
Okay,
Okay,
so
so
by
by
changing, just
changing,
replace.
just
I mean, just
replace. I mean,
yellow.
just
There is a
yellow.
black,
There is a
yellow,
black,
and red.
yellow, and red.
Okay, and it
Okay,
goes
and
to
it
the three
goes to the three
connectors
connectors
on the
on the
distribution board.
distribution board.
By just
By just
replacing two
replacing
cables or
two cables or
changing,
changing,
I mean
I mean
interchanging, I would say.
interchanging, I would say.
Okay,
Okay,
the direction
the
of the motor
direction of the
also
motor
changes.
also changes.
But this is a
But
very
this is a
small
very
motor.
small
This
motor, so
motor
this
will not
motor will
have
normally
a
not have
marking
a
whether this
marking
is a
whether this is
CW
a
motor or
CW motor or
CCW,
CCW
because
because
this is a very
this is a very
cheaper kind of
cheaper
motor.
kind of motor.
Okay,
Okay,
so this
so
costs you
this
around
costs
just
you around just
400 rupees.
400 rupees.
Okay, so this is
So
very
this is very
common motor which
common
is
motor
used
which
in
is
a
used
drone.
in a drone.
Okay,
Okay,
so here you
so
can
here you can
interchange the motors,
interchange the motors,
but the
but
motors
the
which
motors
use
which
in a
use
bigger
in a
drones,
bigger drones,
they have
you
been
know, they have
marked
been marked
with
with
CW or
CW or
CCW or
CCW
direction
or
of the motor.
direction of the motor.
So if it
So
is
if it is
CW motor,
CW motor,
you have to
you
use
have
it
to
for
use it for
CW
CW
function only.
function only.
You have to put
You
a
have to put a
CW
CW
propeller on it
propeller on
only.
it
You
only.
cannot
You
use
cannot use
other vice
other
versa.
vice
Even
versa.
though
Even
there
though
also you
there
can
also
by
you can
changing
by
the
changing
cable,
the
you can
cable you can
change the
change
direction.
the direction.
You should never
You
do
should
it
never do
because
it because
the magnet
the magnet
insides and the
insides and
coils
the
are
coils are
oriented for that
oriented for
particular
that
motion.
particular motion.
Okay, so
Okay,
bigger
so
motors
bigger motors
where you have
where
more
you have
number of
more number of
magnets. There are
magnets. There
almost
are almost
36
36
magnets inside the
magnets
motor.
inside the motor.
Okay,
Okay,
and then there are
and then there
coils
are
around it.
coils around it.
So based on
So
that
based on
coil
that coil
and the number
and
of
the number of
magnets,
magnets,
the
the
orientation of the
orientation of
movement,
the
okay,
movement,
that
okay, that
spinning motion
spinning
is
motion
defined,
is defined
and based on
and
the
based on the
magnetic
magnetic
magnet what
magnet
they
what
have it.
they have it.
The
You know, the
orientation of the
orientation
magnet,
of the magnet,
north
north
south
north south
position of the
position of
magnet.
the magnet.
Based on that,
Based on
they are
that,
being
they are being,
aligned.
you know,
So the
aligned.
motor,
So the
bigger
motor,
motors,
bigger
you will
motors, you
always
will
see
always
a
see
marking
a
on it.
marking on it.
Either there would be
Either
a
there would be a
marking
marking
or there would be
or there
written
would
as
be
a
written as a
CW or a
CW or
CCW.
CCW.
So अगर
तो अगर
CW है तो
CW है तो
CW के लिए ही
CW के
use
लिए ही
करना है.
यूज करना है.
So you should
So
know
you should know
also
also
where to put
where
the
to put the
CW motor
CW
on the
motor
drone.
on the drone.
Okay,
Okay,
and where to
and
put a
where to put a
CCW motor
CCW
on your
motor
drone.
on your drone.
Okay, this I
Okay,
will
this
show
I
you
will
when
show
we
you when
actually
we
see the
actually see the
physical drone.
physical drone.
Because
Because
when
when
you
you
are
are
doing
doing
this, you
this,
need to
you
know
need to know
the heading
the
of the
heading
drone
of the
first.
drone first.
Okay.
Okay.
So these are
So
some
these are
practical
some practical
aspects which we will
aspects which we
discuss
will
during
discuss during
our day
our
three
day three
post simulator
post
session.
simulator session. Okay, again, servicing the gimbal, lot of time, gimbal may become malfunction or you have to replace and all that things. So power down the drone, make sure all motors are running down completely, remove the propellers, unscrew the gimbal frame, remove the camera, additional connections, remove the defective gimbal, align the new gimbal. So even after you put a new gimbal, don't think that new gimbal will work on it. It needs to be calibrated. Okay. So after the service, assemble the system, check for stabilization, pan tilt, movement, and video output. So when you have changed the gimbal, put back the camera and everything, you need to calibrate the gimbal properly because again pan and tilt motion should happen properly, and you should check whether the camera is functioning properly. You are able to capture the footage of the camera with respect to the photographs or the video if you are planning to take them. If you have a multispectral or hyperspectral camera or payload on it. So according to the payload, whatever you attach, try to function those actions before taking the flight. After the flight is taken, you if you find there is a problem, you have to always land it. It is always advisable before taking the flight you test the things, especially the gimbal and the camera. Landing gear, like lot of time over the period time, after, and if you are having a landing gear similar to like this where it can change its position when it is in a flight, so this landing gear comes upside so that your gimbal can move 360 degree. Okay, the camera can take a complete 360 degree without changing the position of the drone or without moving the drone. So you can put the drone in hovering position, your landing gear goes upside, and you have a clear 360-degree view of the camera taking the footage. So in that scenario, lot of time because of this mechanical movement in the landing gear and during the landing position, a lot of time the damage or some wear tear always happens on this type of landing gears. So if you find there are problems or something, you should always replace. Okay? And then you should make sure after you replace your landing gear on a plain surface, you should always see the level of your drone. A lot of time people think that he just replace kar diya ho gaya. Nahin. If you have to check the level of that particular ground, and then you keep a drone over there, and then try to see the level of that ground, level of the drone. It should say leveled drone. Okay? कभी कभी ऊपर नीचे होता है, थोड़ा ऊपर अलाइनमेंट गलत होता है, थोड़ा टिल्ट होता है. So when there is a tilt, when it is landing on a surface also, you will have that tilt in the on the drone. Okay? So you should always make sure that your drone is leveled on the ground properly. So you should always have a spirit level along with you when you are going for flight also. Okay, camera we talked about, like in case you find any problem with the camera and all this, you can always unscrew the gimbal and remove the camera from the gimbal and replace the faulty camera, and make sure that you test the camera before the flight. Okay, that's the very important point. Like especially in DJI drones, where the camera module itself is expensive than the drone actually. A lot of time when you are going for a replacement of a camera in DJI, it costs almost two-thirds the cost of the drone. Okay, so it becomes very expensive a lot of times. Sometimes you need to uh, replace drone. Like sometimes you crash or your camera get damages or your gimbal get damages. So people, try to repair themselves and all. So don't do that in especially in DJI drones because they are very miniatures, very precise components into that. Okay, so which you will not be able to uh, repair them on your own unless you are trained from DJI or kind of, or you are having an experience of doing it. Then only you should do it. Okay, once you put up the new camera, again test, calibrate, check your calibration of gimbal and yaw and roll motions in the app. Check your camera for zoom out, and photograph videos. All the things you should check before actually the flight. Okay, so this was the last where we completed the drone equipment and the maintenance.
Yes.
Okay, let's move to the next. Any questions on this topic?
No, sir.
No, sir.
So this is like taking care of your drone, as simple as that.
Yeah.
So as a drone pilot, it is your responsibility to make sure that before the flight and after the flight, you always physically inspect the drone. And after a certain cycles, like let's say 100 flights or 50 hours of flying, or maybe 200 flights or 50 hours of flying or 100 hours, right? Depending upon whatever drone you are using, whatever the maintenance cycle is defined, you perform the complete maintenance of it. Okay? So cleaning, that wiping of the dust and all the things you should do it. And since we were doing the project for Powerline Towers, this was mostly in the very rural areas, dusty areas, and all the things. So whenever we used to fly the drones, after maybe a week's period, like normally we used to fly from Monday to Friday, and Saturday Sunday used to be off. So our Fridays used to be always a half day. Okay, so our later part of our Friday was supposed to be going back and keeping the equipment. That's the time. Normally, the second half of the Friday was more or less like a maintenance for us. We take the drone back to our office or keep it wherever we are going to store. Even sometimes we store it in a car. Like we people used to take the drones in the eco. So in eco, there in the backside they would have a casing where they could keep the drones, keep the batteries, the battery pack, the generator. Lot of things would be there. So they will they will put everything properly and clean and pack it in the device. The maintenance we would be doing it regularly on every Friday second half, depending upon how do you define how much is usage of your that your maintenance side. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's take just a 5 minutes break and then we'll start with the topic of emergency handling. Okay, we'll just take a 5 minutes break.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
हॅलो. अच्छा. ओके.
Yeah, sir.
तुम्ही ते 10 बुक्स आहेत ते तुम्ही कलेक्ट म्हणजे तुमच्या बरोबर आता घेऊन चाललाय की काय कसं चाललंय? मग एक काम करा ना, आय डोंट नो, पण तुम्ही किती वाजेपर्यंत मला, कारण मला आत्ता माझं ना ॲक्च्युली सेशन चालू आहे, माझं सेशन संध्याकाळी 6ला संपणार. त्याच्यानंतर अच्छा, म्हणजे बोरिवली स्टेशनला भेटाल का तुम्ही मला? अच्छा चालेल, म्हणजे तुम्हाला वेळ नाही लागणार ना म्हणजे तिथे स्टेशनला यायला? ओके ओके ठीक आहे, मग मी तुम्हाला तसा फोन करेन. ठीक आहे. हां, मग आपण संध्याकाळी कॉर्डिनेट करू आणि मग मी करेक्ट करेन. ओके ओके, थँक्यू.
Just a minute, huh? I am just talking to some vendor actually.
Okay, sir, no problem. Hello? हाँ.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry for
Yes, sir.
attend
Yes.
some vendor. Actually, we have put some orders for drone components, and it has gone to some other location. So
Okay.
Okay.
I don't know why they have sent it to our another office. Okay, where they were supposed to deliver it, our corporate office. It has gone to some or wherever we are having our aviation classes. That location they have gone. I don't know from where they have taken that address. So every time we order, then it order normally get delivered to our corporate office.
Okay.
Vendor was actually standing there, and that guy was asking, and nobody was saying what this. Only because the people over there know me, so that person called me over here and said this and so person has come with some parcel. Then I told him that he should go deliver. Then he said he could not deliver because he doesn't have that address. Right, then you do whatever you need to do properly. I mean, you can go back and ask your manager what needs to be done. Check our whatever the order we have put, what is the delivery address, from where you have got this, our other office. There might be some other orders might be have placed uh, from that location because that is the aviation college. Okay, so they might be also ordering some components or something from that vendor. So that's why they might be have by mistakenly they would have checked in their system the wrong address. Okay. So coming back to our session, we have done the weather and meteorology. We have done the drone equipment and maintenance. Now we are aware